So I'm Martha Minow, and as Dean of the Law School and as a longtime friend of David's, it is, of course, with deep, deep sadness, but also with a spirit of celebration that I welcome you all here today as we remember and celebrate the life of David Grossman. David devoted his life to pursuing justice. He brought creativity, integrity, craft, humor, stamina, fashion sense, and tenacity to all that he did and what he did. He inspired and enabled students to make a difference in the world while changing the possibilities of day-to-day justice. After our remarks here today, you are all invited not only to join us for a reception, but also to give your written remarks, your own thoughts, your speak back, if you will, in some booklets that are here. We are so honored to have this chance to celebrate his life and work, and wonderfully, we're joined here today with his wife, Stacy, son, Lev, daughter, Shayna, and so many friends, former students, colleagues. A superbly talented student from an early age, David was born and raised in New Jersey, and he spent his adult life in Boston. He graduated from Harvard College, and he wouldn't want me to say it, but I'm saying it. It was Summa, and he received a master's degree in Eastern religions from the Harvard Divinity School. He moved to Israel, where, among other activities, he worked for the Association of Civil Rights in Israel. He clerked for 2 justices on the Israeli Supreme Court. He played basketball for the Maccabi Ra'anana team. And he came back to Cambridge, where he earned his JD at Harvard Law School in 1988. And again, he wouldn't want me to say it, but he did it magna. While in law school, David pursued clinical work. And he met Gary Bello and Jean Charn. And something meaningful happened in that meeting. David was electrified by the mission and the methods of the Legal Services Center. He reveled in and shared its devotion to social justice. He loved the focus on empowering students and community members, and the combination, doing that while providing effective advocacy for those in need, social justice, day-to-day work, that was thrilling to him. He worked briefly at a New York law firm, Kramer Levin, long enough to meet and woo Stacy, the love of his life. And then he left New York and the comfortable life of a big corporate lawyer and returned to Boston. His friend and mentor, Gary Bello, modeled the kind of life that David chose to make, a life of performing good deeds, trying to repair the world. David decided to use law for social justice, first as a clinical instructor and then clinical professor at the Wilmer Hale Legal Services Center, and he headed the housing work. And then, at the request of then Dean Elena Kagan, he became the managing attorney, faculty director, and clinical professor of the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau. David leapt into the work and into the crisis of the housing disaster after 2008, making a truly vital partnership between the Legal Services Program and City Life Vita Urbana, the community organization led by Steve Meacham. David was on fire. And he developed, in partnership, an approach to the gentrification-driven rent increases, to the foreclosures, to the crisis in the community that combined lawyering, education, organizing, social justice. And through the project No One Leaves, David and the students mobilized community members and volunteers. They canvassed foreclosed properties on a weekly basis. They conducted clinics each week to bring information, education about rights to people. They deployed a legal shield, a shield for the movement, because it became a movement, as members vigorously defended against post-foreclosure evictions through creative and systematic and analytic approaches. One crucial result was agreements with developers and landlords to guarantee long-term stability and affordability for Boston area buildings full of tenants who'd been threatened with displacement. Another concrete result was a national model that was copied by many other communities, but also directly spread by the work of David and his team with the support of the Oak Foundation. Another result was national attention, coverage by public broadcasting, New York Times, The Nation, local media, French television. And another result was the forging of such bonds of community and relationship building, connecting students, clients, community members, community organizations who are still now advancing protections for individuals and families and towns, changing and enforcing laws, strengthening the tools and spirit necessary for helping people. David's influence on students, though, is perhaps the most everlasting result. One student said, and I quote, "You changed my life, not in the overused cliche, isn't that a nice thing to say kind of way, but in the truest sense of the words. I'm a different person because of you, and I am one among countless others. You could have done anything with all those fancy Harvard degrees, you know? But instead of framed diplomas in some glittery corner office, you chose tattered maps in the back room of the bureau. You chose community. You chose your students." Another one of his students, I see here today, he went on to Congress, where he has become an outspoken advocate for legal services and for low-income people. And Congressman Joe Kennedy, thank you for being here. He spoke on the floor of the House to remember David Grossman and said, and I quote, "Throughout his career, David Grossman showed how words like justice and fairness were not just ideas for discussion, but principles that had to be fought for, protected, and defended. In so doing, he protected thousands of people in need and inspired hundreds of young lawyers. Our community has lost a champion, but his values and vision live on through all those he touched." David had ideas, passion, and an ability to spark other people to action. One of his ideas was to strengthen the Lawyer of the Day program. Another was to bring Bruce Springsteen music into the Harvard Law School, as well as sunglasses on the head. And whether or not he knew it, he inspired colleagues, so many students beyond those who worked with him directly. I was lucky enough to count him as a friend and as an advisor on questions big and small. He had judgment. He had a way of doing the right thing and pointing other people in the direction of doing the right thing. He was fierce about his students, and he was fierce about his family. Stacy, Lev, and Shayna, Sister Rachel, and other family members and friends made his life joyful as he fought against a cruel cancer for 7 years. And with formidable intellect and constant courage, David also brought tremendous humility, humor, friendship to every encounter, elevating allies and opponents alike. His work and his leadership set the standard for excellence and responsiveness. We will do our best to continue his vital efforts to heal the world. We join next by Jean Charn.